I'm gonna get straight to the point with this one, okay? Meal timing is not as important as a lot of people may think or as a lot of people have made it out to be over the last couple of years. With that said, there are some scenarios where changing up or manipulating your meal timing could actually be very beneficial in terms of either losing fat or building muscle. So we're gonna get into that today. What's good, YouTube? It's Coach John back again, repping the gains. You know how it is. If you wanna get to your goals, fitness goals, faster or more enjoyably, hit the subscribe button below. Also, if you check the description below, you've got an opportunity to grab my free macro and calorie guide. This guide's gonna show you exactly how to get started, how to figure out something much more important than meal timing, being your calories and macros. So if you need help doing so, go ahead and check it out. And last but not least, before we dive into this video, I wanna reiterate that all the studies, any and all studies that I use to back up the claims that I'm making in this video will be listed at the bottom of the description in case you want to make your own video on it, in case you want to read up more about it. So with that said, let's go. So you got to understand that when it comes to body composition or performance, really just health and fitness in general, there is an overarching concept, a pyramid if you will, that really shows the importance of certain things along the way as it pertains to just nutrition as a whole. Now, as you're closer to the bottom of the pyramid, of course the base, things are more important. As you start moving up the pyramid, things are less and less important. Why do I say this? Because meal timing is pretty high up on that pyramid. It comes after things such as energy balance, macros, micros, and of course the overarching of all principles, which is adherence, right? Now, like I mentioned, meal timing way up top there, which does suggest that it's not as nearly as important as all of those other things are. So before you start freaking out about figuring out what meal to have at what time, make sure you figure those things out first. So if you haven't gotten those done, don't even watch the rest of this video, because what I'm gonna do now is I'm actually gonna dive into the specific scenarios where meal timing could actually make somewhat of a difference. But again, unless you got those down, it's not gonna make any difference. So let's go ahead and break it down in terms of the context of someone trying to lose fat. As we already know, losing fat means you need to be in a caloric deficit, right? Without the deficit, fat loss will not occur regardless of what time you do or don't eat your meals at. With that said, there is a very, very important tool, okay? And it is a tool, it is not a magical formula or a special way of doing things, but simply a tool that actually helps people achieve the deficit with reducing hunger, reducing cravings, improving energy levels, and so on. And that is actually called intermittent fasting, okay? Now, intermittent fasting just happens to be the nicely packaged, nicely marketable way of saying you're just changing the eating window, okay? So what intermittent fasting is, they like to put rules to it, but in reality there are no rules. The rule is you simply eat for less period of time throughout the day. So I'll give you an example. Instead of waking up and eating right away or within the hour all the way until you go to sleep, maybe a typical 12-hour eating window for most people, instead you cut that down by 4 hours, which is an 8-hour eating window, okay? Now, people, again, with the marketing, come out and say it improves growth hormone, it improves testosterone, it does this for you. The truth of the matter is, according to the studies, none of that is actually going to make a significant difference whatsoever. But one thing that it does do is it facilitates a caloric deficit. Why is that? Because it is much easier to eat less food in less time. If I have 12 hours to eat, it's going to be easier for me to eat too much. If I condense that to 8 hours or even less, some people like doing 4 hours, then guess what? It's going to be very difficult to stuff your body with enough food that you're in over your calories in just 4 hours. So that is ultimately the premise behind intermittent fasting, and I will agree, like I mentioned, it is a great tool because all that time that you're fasted, all you're having is water, black coffee, sparkling water, these types of things, and actually it does help with reducing cravings and reducing hunger, because if you don't start eating until 12 p.m., you might think that you're going to be super hungry, but again, if you're consuming those beverages and doing the appropriate things throughout that fast, then you're actually not going to experience hunger, and of course your body gets used to it and so on. So it can be a very powerful tool. But again, people like to just start with the intermittent fasting as opposed to figuring out what their calories are. And that's what leads to people doing intermittent fasting and seeing no results off of it because they think that it's the intermittent fasting that makes a difference. It isn't. That's essentially how meal timing can help with your fat loss, okay? Because again, it's facilitating the caloric deficit. Now, let's talk about muscle gain. There is actually a different way that meal timing can help with your muscle gain, though it is important to note that the results are negligible for 99% of people. The 1% who could benefit from it are people that are really trying to maximize muscle mass, such as professional bodybuilders. Now, what I'm talking about here is eating those smaller meals throughout the day, each meal having a certain amount of protein, typically at least 25 grams, and having them split amongst 2 to 3 hours between. Now, the reason for this is because every time you ingest this amount of protein, your body actually makes sure your body goes into a positive nitrogen balance, which is a fancy way of saying your body is in the best environment to build muscle, to create protein synthesis, okay? So you're recovering, you're repairing when in a positive nitrogen balance. Now, after you consume a meal with protein, adequate protein to trigger this stimulus, after about 2 hours, it starts to come down. Elevated protein synthesis starts to taper down a little bit, and that's why, boom, perfect time to have another meal. Now, again, this is something that only athletes that are trying to maximize muscle mass or maximize performance that requires their muscle mass to be at its peak or their recovery, again, elite athletes, elite bodybuilders would definitely fall into this category. The thing is that bodybuilders got this and they put it out to the public. They say, this is how I achieve maximum muscle and so on and so forth. And this is what led to people thinking that, well, if you eat 6 to 10 meals a day, that's gonna boost your metabolism, you're gonna burn more fat, and you're gonna... It's not the case, okay? Though it may cause this much of a boost in your metabolism because you gotta use up excess calories of constantly digesting, it actually has negative consequences on the other side of that. One is the fact that they're negligible at best. It's not gonna boost your metabolism and suddenly allow you to eat hundreds of calories more and achieve the same result. And on the other end, constantly having to eat over and over and really just starting to morph your schedule and your lifestyle around eating every 2 to 3 hours can be very annoying for most people and definitely not practical. So don't get too caught up in that. Again, if you are trying to maximize that extra, milk out that extra 1% or 0.1% of muscle mass, then yes, eating every 2 to 3 hours, a sufficient amount of protein could be beneficial. Now, as for performance, okay, let's talk about that, meaning in the gym or for a game or whatever sport you play. I've spoken in depth about pre-workout, intra-workout, and post-workout meals, exactly what to have and how soon before or after to have them, but it is important to know that typically having a sufficient amount, typically 25 to 50 grams of carbs and protein within 2 hours pre-workout and 2 hours post-workout will typically maximize your recovery and how much you're getting out of that lifting session or out of that game performance-wise. So, of course, having meals strategically placed, strategic meals strategically placed around your workouts and or any event where you need to perform could be beneficial as well. I know a lot of people like fasting during their performances, but I'll tell you this right now, most athletes will not fast before a big game. However, the average gym goer likes fasting in the morning before their average style of workout, which is totally fine. Just some quick myths I'm gonna rattle off here to finish off the video. The first one is worrying about eating meals too late at night. Despite what people have maybe convinced you of, like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, it does not matter so long as that meal is not putting you into a caloric surplus. You will not gain excess body fat. What it may do is slightly fluctuate the scale the next morning. However, if you're constantly having that consistent late night meal, it's gonna iron out completely and you will see the same amount of progress as you would otherwise, given that you're staying in that caloric deficit. The next one is pretty much the premise of this video, which is thinking that meal timing has really any sort of significant impact on your results as anybody other than an elite athlete or bodybuilder. Look, you can throw it all out the window. You can have one meal a day, you can have 20. It's not gonna make a big difference so long as the base of the pyramid, the base is calories, macros, micros are covered. You don't need to worry about the rest so much. Another myth that's classic is breakfast is so important. Do not skip breakfast. It triggers metabolism, all these different things. And I'll be completely honest, I did at one time think that breakfast was very important, okay? Until I really did more research, of course, which is why I'm bringing you these videos now. And it turns out, hey, breakfast doesn't matter at all. Again, if we're looking for optimizing health, nutrition, practicality, adherence, and so on, it's really gonna come down to preference. A lot of people like waiting until afternoon or mid-afternoon until they have their first meal, and I've done it in the past several times, and I also tend to like it from time to time. It just feels okay, it feels fine. Again, working out fasted could be a great thing for you. If you haven't tried it out yet, it's worth giving a try. However, breakfast is not mandatory because, again, if you're having breakfast but you're going over your calories, then guess what? You're actually becoming more unhealthy than somebody who skips breakfast but hits their calories. Again, get the priorities in order. And that is pretty much it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you have any questions, comments, concerns about anything, hit that comment section below. I'll see you there and I'll respond to everything or any questions you have. And also, of course, as always, please let me know any other topics. Let me know what you think about the topics I've been dropping lately, and I'd be happy to answer any and all questions that have to do with them and drop any more topics that you'd like to see. So again, thanks for watching. Always appreciate y'all. Love y'all. Don't forget to like, comment, share with your friends, and subscribe. And I'll catch you in that next video very soon. I'm out.